Recording in progress. balance sheet for December as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem. December, it was not Finovo, it was so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
The parents. I can't do anything about that.
yeah, no, you can't. You can't.
And I can't do anything before I get anything from the serve for the final trial balance.
Yes. Okay, no problem.
She thinks they can work from the Feb balance sheet.
Uh-huh.
If you can give that to them.
Okay, good.
So maybe we can send the draft, even if you can just send the draft financial statements to them. It will help as well.
It will, yeah. Okay, they'll get the signed one later on.
Yes.
Okay, and then I met with ABSA yesterday because I needed them to increase my overdraft.
Yes.
So that I don't have my accounts going into excess and so on.
Yeah.
So, but then unfortunately, they said it's not viable. Because my finances
Good morning,
are not
members. Good morning, members.
Obviously, I tried to argue
morning,
that they are far much better than last year's. Last year's we've got a loss of about 2.4. This year is just 40K.
Yes.
But then they are saying the concern it's a loan, the director's loan of 8 million. So Francois, that one, that loan, I don't know how Rousseau is capturing this information and so on. It looks like I'm not going to win anywhere in terms of getting future financial assistance from these financial institutions. And I don't know how best can we correct that? Because the other thing I highlighted to them, my financials don't show any capital that I've contributed towards the business. Yeah, when I buy the first store, the unencumbered fund that was required, the 2.8, and then the second store at the same time. So they are saying it is not captured anywhere in the finances. So I don't know how best can you assist us in terms of, I don't know. I'm not a financial person, or in terms of financial acumen, I'm not that sharp as you are, but then you will advise better as to how best can we handle it.
Let me speak to Etienne as well.
Yes.
And then we'll come back to you regarding that.
Okay.
Because it's operations issue for us as well. If we have to really dig into it.
Yes.
But for that, we also need the information.
Okay.
And so it's not going to release the information before we actually, before it's been paid.
Yes.
If you understand.
Good.
But yeah, let me just speak to Etienne as well.
Okay.
And then we can just saying that I have never met Kat, that is Mtlala, and it's true. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. I've never had any activity with him. I don't know the person. And at the same time saying
Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, good morning and you are welcome to the meeting today. I also welcome our staff of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperation, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. All of you, you are welcome to the meeting today. South Africans who may have made their responsibility to follow the proceedings of the interaction between us and the department, you are also welcomed. If there's media houses which are also following the proceedings of our meeting, we are also taking this opportunity to welcome you. Today, honorable members, we are going to be dealing with opening and welcome apologies. It's opening and welcome, adoption of the agenda, apologies, presentation by the department on the third and fourth quarters of both the ARF and the department. And then we'll deal with various sets of the minutes of the past meetings of the Portfolio Committee. I present the agenda for adoption, honorable members. Do we have a mover for adoption?
Thank you, Chair. I move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Honorable Andisiwe Kumbatla. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, Chair. Good morning. It's Honorable Mhlongo. I move to second the move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Msongo. Just before we start, honorable members, I must just bring it to the attention of the portfolio committee and the department that I'm in transit to go and pay respect to the family of the former Deputy President of the Republic, Honorable David Mabuza. So it is possible that I may lose the connectivity along the way. So in case that happens, I will request Honorable Kumbata to continue with the meeting if I can lose connectivity. Lubabalo, do we have apologies?
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. We have 4 apologies, Chair. The minister is traveling from the BRICS summit from Brazil, and Honorable Potas is on an official visit in Colombia, and Deputy Minister Moraga, she's on sick leave. And then the 4th one is from Honorable Mishwa. He's attending another portfolio committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. As you know, honorable members, we have lost the Deputy President of the
Honorable
Republic.
Chair. Sorry,
So
my hand's up.
Okay, I couldn't see Honorable Datlas.
Yeah, sorry, just an apology from Honorable Zuma Zabudla. She's also not, she's traveling at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say, I'm sure collectively here in the meeting as the portfolio committee and the department, we will agree that part of our statement today will also be about condolences we are sending to the Mabuza family, the friends and the comrades, especially his organization, the African National Congress. He lost his life last week, as we all know, and is going to be buried on Saturday. So we will, after the meeting, then issue that statement on behalf of the portfolio committee. Lubabalo, from the department, who is heading today the presentation of the reports?
The DG Chair is leading the delegation. Thank you, Chair.
And Dr. Dango, you are welcome. We know that you have been all over the world since that US meeting. You have never rested. You have been all over the world, but you are welcome to the meeting today. I'm now going to hand over to you to present the 3rd and 4th quarterly performance reports of the entity and the department, after which there will be engagements by members of the portfolio committee. Over to you, TG.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Honorable Chair, I'm not going to take long with introductory remarks. I think that the presentation is quite lengthy, and I'm going to ask that my colleagues, who's the head of the COO's office, Ms. Baloy, and also Ms. Musa, go through the presentation in detail. As you pointed out, Chair, in the beginning, we are presenting both the ARF and DIRCO this morning. We were presenting on the quarters 3 and 4, and the report from DIRCO and from the ARF will highlight the key activity and milestones that both the entity and the department have implemented. So I'm going to hand over in the first instance, with your permission, Chair, to Ms. Baloy and Ms. Musa. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, DG. Good morning to the chairperson and also the portfolio committee members. We will present the quarter 3 and quarter 4 performance report of the department. We have combined the two as we are reporting, and I believe that the honorable members have gone through the presentation, so I will summarize some of the issues and highlight the ones that I believe that needs mentioning. Thank you. The report, as we go through the report, you will realize that we have front-loaded it with quarter 2 to 4 to enable the department to highlight key issues and achievements in terms of the implementation of South Africa's foreign policy. And these are the core functions, programs that we will be highlighting. And then the program 1 will then follow, which obviously gives support to the core, which is 2 to 4. You will realize as I go through the report that both quarter 3 and quarter 4, the department was able to achieve all the targets, which is 24-24 and 24-24 in quarter 3 and 4. And then when you will see in terms of the tables, in terms of quarter 3, program 1 had 9 targets and all were met. And then in terms of program 3, we had 4 targets which all were met, which is the difference. The other in terms of quarter 4 will then remain the same. In quarter 4, program 1 is 8 targets which were met, and then program 3 is 5 targets which were met. I will move to start reporting on program 2, as I've already mentioned. This program 2 speaks to the 3 bilateral branches, which is Africa, Americas and Europe, and then Asia and Middle East. And in terms of this, we will then highlight 3 reports, which the first one is the regional political reports. This will include the outcomes of structured bilateral mechanism and high-level visits, which are aligned to the achievement of our NDP and also MTSF. And then the second one will go to the reports in terms of the regional trade and investment, which includes investment initiatives which are undertaken in support of the one government investment approach. And in this regards, head office and also our missions continue to explore investment opportunities for South Africa in line with the objectives of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which focuses on the priority interventions aimed at restoring growth and also creating jobs. And the last one, in terms of the reports, will then go to the regional tourism promotions. And this one will deal with our promotion events, which are used to promote South Africa as a preferred tourist destination. And you will realize that as ourselves as a country, we recognize tourism as an immense potential and has a significant contribution to the economy. In terms of the tourism activities, you will see we talk in terms of the outreach program, which will move from the tour operators, the travel media through information dissemination, participation in tourism fairs, the expos and tourism foreign markets you will be able to see as I move through. I will then begin, Chair, as I've already mentioned, with the political reports, and my first region will be Africa. You will see some of the issues that I'll be highlighting here. Under the 2 quarters, we were able to undertake 2 state visits. President Ramaphosa undertook a state visit to Algeria, which included an attendance to the BNC and various agreements, MOUs, including on executive program covering trade, justice and judiciary, space, science, technology, agriculture, startups, and innovation were concluded. And the second one, he hosted the Republic of Angola, and the discussion included inauguration of BNC and also a signing of agreements in the field of arts, culture, and also higher education. I will then move to the Americas and also Europe. Some of the activities that were undertaken during the 2 quarters, you will see that we're talking about the Chilean Deputy Ministers of Foreign Affairs visited South Africa. And in terms of this, an MOU on aquaculture and fisheries were signed with DFFA. And also our Deputy Minister paid an official visit to Slovak Republic, where shared perspective for multilateral and also global issues and critical geopolitical developments, including strengthened bilateral political and economic relations, were also discussed there. Also, in terms of the high level, you see there was a bilateral meeting that was held between our minister and also Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada. on the margins of the G20 ministers' meetings, discussing issues of shared interest and also bilateral cooperation. I will then move to Asia and Middle East, where you will see then the Deputy Minister Mraka's first official visit to China. The Chinese authorities pledged their support for South Africa's presidency of the G20 for 2025, and emphasis was actually placed on the need for South African small and medium enterprise to be exposed to the Chinese market, a call that is consistent to government's economic and reconstruction plan. And in terms of the high-level visit, one of the activities undertaken there was when the Deputy President undertook a working visit to Japan, where bilateral political, economic, and social relations were strengthened. And obviously, the DP engaged with the Japanese government, its agencies, and Japanese business, advancing our economic diplomacy initiative, such as the development of, development assistance with Japan. I will then move to the second report, which falls under trade and investment, and I will start with Africa, as I've done with the political reports. There you will see some of the activities that we are highlighting them. There was actually a workshop hosted by the Development Bank of South Africa, where discussions with regard to the strategies for South African development finance institutions, operations in transition for African countries. The focus was actually on the alignment with South Africa's foreign policy, mitigating risk, fostering sustainable development in a politically and economically volatile context. I will see then the rest of the others. I will then move to Americas and Europe, where you will see in terms of the issues of trade, South African missions abroad actively promoted trade, investment, and economic diplomacy across various sectors. Highlights includes engagement in Brussels, showcasing South Africa's investment appeal, The Hague, where Africa's infrastructure opportunities were spotlighted, and Vienna, where organic tea exports were advanced. Missions in Chile and Brazil supported aquaculture, mining, and wine trade, while Toronto explored partnership with the Black North initiatives. I'll then move to the Asia and Middle East there. In terms of this, the region actively promoted trade, investment, and sectoral cooperation. And in China, 30 companies secured around 4.1 billion in deals at the China International Import-Expo. Missions in Tokyo, which is Seoul, and also Canberra, promoted South Africa's participation in food, wine,
your portfolio.
leather, textile. In Wellington, steps towards.
I think and Parliament member I think particularly it's going to nominate a move.
So Lubabalo, can you check who's disrupting the meeting and deal with it, please? Sorry, President.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. I will then move ahead. I was under the Trade and Investment Report, Region Asia and Middle East. The Wellington Mission initiated steps towards the potential SANZ free trade agreements. And then in the Gulf, Dubai hosted SA Small Business at the Free from a Food Expo, while Kuwait Lulu Group is importing 3 million in South Africa of goods. And then I'll move then to the last report in terms of Program 2, which speaks to our tourism. And I will start with Africa as per the norm. We will see that our mission in Guinea participated in the opening of the Guinea tourism season to promote the brand South Africa, and a visit to the Laba region to promote cultural diplomacy, which reached awareness and also to the success of the country's 30 years of democracy. And then in terms of when during the West Africa Corporate Trading engagement, South African tourism, and then West Africa and the mission in Lagos hosted strategic engagement to encourage businesses engagement between corporate travel managers from various companies and industry stakeholders, including the ones in KZN. Tourism also works through Robben Island Museum, Marine Hotel, business chambers leadership, airline country managers, and also corporate travel managers throughout the country. Then in terms of the region in Americas and Europe, you will see South Africa obviously actively promoted the country as a preferred tourism destination across the global platforms. In the Latin America engagement in Mexico, in Chile, in Peru, in Brazil, and Venezuela included exhibitions, wine tasting, and cultural events which were centered around the issues of the Nelson Mandela legacy, and South Africa also showcasing South Africa's tourism offering. Then I'll move to the last region, which is Asia and Middle East, also still on the tourism report. Here you will see that at the Aleppo International Fair in Syria, South African tourism, culture, and trade opportunities were showcased by the mission. And the mission also participated in the International Day at Dulwich College in Pudong. The occasion provided an opportunity for the mission to promote South Africa's food, culture, and also South Africa as a tourism destination. And I'll move to the regional integration, which talks to our SADC region. We will remember that SADC remains a foreign policy priority for South Africa in her efforts to achieve regional development and integration within this region. And the assessment report of this during this time will show South Africa's contribution towards peace and stability and socio-economic development, good governance and democracy, and the implementation of the region of the RSDP, which is the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, and which reflects activities in which South Africa participated. So you will see all the activities which SADC region actually participated in, and also the outcomes in terms of that. One of them will include obviously the SADC Regional Poverty Observatory meeting, which was held in Harare, Zimbabwe, which included the representatives of the Department of Social Development, Statistics of South Africa, which serves as a forum for stakeholders to engage in poverty eradication at the region and also national level to discuss emerging issues, networks, and also share some experiences. Then I will move to program 3, which is our system and global governance. Here we also go through 3 reports on the outcome of multilateral and multi-state organizations reflecting South Africa's participation in interest and including that of the African agenda. So we'll speak to the report on peace and security, report on human rights, and also on economic and social development. In terms of peace and security, you'll see the reports focused on the following activities that took place during the reporting period, and those activities are actually mentioned in the presentation. You will see the major one was UNGA 79, which a lot of activities took place, and also the side meeting in terms of towards our takeover of the G20. And then in terms of report on the human rights, also you will see a lot of activities that actually were undertaken between the 2 quarters. And the major one was actually on the meeting on the 57th session of the human rights. And you will see that we then also had the 58th session of the Human Rights Council, which took place in the 4th quarter. And then I'll go to the last one, which is the economic and social development here. And the report focuses on the following activities that also took place one of them being the Foreign Policy and Global Health Initiative, and also finalization of the draft UNGA resolution on global health and foreign policy in Geneva in November 2024 for further consideration and negotiation in New York during UNGA. And then the continental cooperation is where I will then head to. Here, there's also one assessment report reflecting on South Africa's participation and outcomes of the AU structures, processes, partnership, and implementation of the Agenda 2063. And the report focuses on the following: obviously, the attendance and participation in the various activities that took place during this reporting period, which is Q3 and 4. And then we had the 2 reports on South Africa's international reporting obligations, which were submitted, which include South Africa's commitment, which highlighted South Africa's commitment and effort towards the issues of peace and stability. And also the major one is the issue of the number of positions on identified influential multilateral bodies where South Africa is represented. And here the review goes towards the issues of 60 positions, and we were able to meet that target. The next one, in terms of Program 3, will report on the South-South cooperation. And here, obviously, the 2 report on the outcomes of the South-South engagement, reflecting South Africa's participation and interest, which included that of the African agenda. And the report focuses on the activities that actually took place, and those will be our attendance during the BRICS summit, which took place in Kazan in Russia. And then we also we also attended IORA third workshop on combating IUVY fishing, which saw the finalization of the draft IORA guidelines on combating IUU fishing. And then we also had the IPSA and as you move through. And then I will then move quickly to the 3.4, which talks to the reports on the North-South. And in terms of the North-South, you will see some of the activities that we took there. Was a meeting between the Minister of Trade and Competition, which is a
so they'll know we on.
And on the new European Union Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security and interinstitutional relations and transparency. And this provided an opportunity to engage on the pertinent trade issues affecting the strategic partnership and to discuss new investment opportunities by the EU into the South African economy. And I will then move to Program 4, which includes both public diplomacy and protocol. There, all the targets that were indicated were met. You will see that around the 6 triple Ps were held by political principles, where audience were engaged on domestic and also international developments. In terms of the protocol and consular, you will see that we were able to render about 442 consular services, broken down as per on the presentation, which is say in distress to 141, the whereabouts of which is 11, mortal remains 118, and then adoptions 2, and then prisoners arrested 33, and then extraditions you will see there is 23. And we were able to, in the 2 quarters, we legalized about 19,309 documents for the South Africans. Then the last one, which I've spoken to at the beginning of the presentation, is Program 1. Here also all the targets were met and various activities were undertaken. You will see that we, as Program 1, we still ensure that we maintain strong internal controls, governance mechanism and compliance in terms of the audit requirements and so forth. And we also ensure that we enhance performance monitoring and evaluation systems through this evidence-based in terms of our decision making. And you will see one of the progress report that was received was on digital strategy, reflecting achievements against the strategies, objectives that we have, which is modernization, data storage, application network, and then the automation of digital businesses processes. And also, we also received 2 progress reports on the implementation of the audit action plan, which is very critical for to move the department where we would like to go. And the last program that I'll be reporting on is program 5. You will see there, which speaks to the payments of South Africa's contribution to international organization. In quarter 3, you'll see it's 15 million. In quarter 4, then we were able to transfer the 286. Then in terms of finance, you will see in terms of quarter 3, for quarter 3, the department was sitting at 74% in terms of expenditure, overall expenditure, which will be broken down on the presentation. And then I'll move quickly to quarter 4, which is the last one. There you will see the department was able to spend 100% in terms of the overall expenditure. So the department's total final appropriation for the 24-25 financial year stands at 7 billion, as you are well aware, honorable members, and we were able to spend 100% of the final budget. So you will see in terms of just the program analysis that in terms of administration, the expenditure reached 98 due to delays in terms of the international infrastructure projects. And then in terms of international relations, which is program 2, we exceeded the budget by 1% due to high exchange rate, which the honorable members are aware of, and also the impact on the cost of living adjustment that were implemented in line with the wage agreement. And then for program 4, you will see in terms of 3 and 4, which is international cooperation, public diplomacy, and state protocol. Here, 100% of the budget, respectively reflecting strong alignment with expenditure, was spent. And then in terms of the international transfer, which is program 5, 95% of its budget were processed within the financial year. Therefore, honorable members, in terms of the quarter 4 that we are actually talking to, we were able to spend about 100%. Thank you, honorable members. I will then leave it at that. Thank you, DG.
And I think she was.
Madam, are you done?
Yes, honorable Mayor.
Honorable Chair, that's the presentation from our side. I'm not sure if you want to take discussion on this or move to the ARF presentation, Chair.
Please present the ARF, DG.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The ARF presentation will be done by Ms. Sempo. She's also in the boardroom with the team. Ms. Sempo, over to you.
Thank you, DG, and good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Honorable members will be presenting quarter 3 and 4 of the ARF. And for both the quarters, ARF has managed to significantly improve the achievement of targets. Also noting that the improvement in quarter 3 and 4 is also impacted by the targets that were not achieved during quarter 1 and 2, which were deferred to quarter 3 and 4. And for quarter two, we are reporting an achievement. For quarter three, we are reporting an achievement of 72%. And for quarter four, we've managed to report an achievement of above of 100% due to the targets that were deferred. But however, we are still coming to report to the committee that the reason for the non-achievement of all the core targets in quarter two is because of the responsive nature of the ARF, where when there's no request submitted for funding, targets are not met, and also the delays with the receiving of the concurrences from National Treasury, which affects the funding of the projects to be deferred to the next quarters. Honorable members, then I will go straight into slide number 6, which now speaks to the exact indicators. The first indicator that we are reporting on is the indicator on the support for the SADC election observer mission. For quarter four, we had anticipated supporting the election observer mission for Namibia, Botswana, and Mozambique and Mauritius, and we have supported these initiatives, and the election observer missions delegates that were representing South Africa were successfully funded from the ARF budget. And on the indicator for technical assistance, which refers to how we support the entire election process of other African countries, to be precise, we did not achieve this target, and this is because there was no request that was submitted for evaluation and funding to the ARF. Moving to the next slide, under prevention and resolution of conflict, under the indicator of the number of requests recommended for mediation and conflict, we have supported the request to fund the DERCO peace-led process, particularly for the DRC, which was recommended and supported. In this indicator, we continue to support the initiatives by the Special Envoy of South Africa to DRC, and also supporting the technical team, which has the necessary expertise from DERCO, leading those mediation and resolution discussions for the betterment and the peace resolution status to be achieved for the Great Lakes in DRC. And under the socio-economic, we have not achieved that target, and this is due to the requests that were not submitted for the evaluation. Honorable members, then going into slide 8, under humanitarian aid, we have managed to achieve 100% of humanitarian aid. During quarter 3, we did not have a target set for quarter 4. In this indicator, during quarter 3, we have supported and funded humanitarian assistance for the Sahrawi refugees, which are based in Tindouf, following the request for the urgent intervention of food supplies. And we have achieved this target. We've worked here with the Sahrawi Red Crescent as the main UN agency on the ground, coordinating all the donors, and we have managed to successfully deliver that, supporting 538 of the displaced families with food supplies from the ARF. Then I'm moving into the next slide, which is slide 9, which speaks to human resource development. We have achieved this target for quarter 4, which was to support the training and development and capacity building. In this project, we have funded a request from the AfroSci, which is an entity of the Auditor General, where we have funded initiatives where there will be training and capacitating the Supreme Audit Institution across 13 African regions to enhance the capacity building. That project was deferred from the other quarters and was successfully approved in quarter 4. And we have also managed to enhance cooperation under Program 6, where we have also funded a project to support the South Center with the initiatives for policy and research development, particularly impacting the success and the support towards the member states and looking particularly into the sustainability development agenda for developing countries in Africa. Slide 10 looks into the administration and project management of the ARF. Honorable members, under this program, we're looking into the efficiency and the management of the resources of the ARF. This program also looks into how we have successfully managed to implement the current projects that have been approved from the previous years. And it further looked into the efficiency of the advisory committee on their methods to evaluate and ensure that the project proposals that are funded are in line with the ARF Act. For both quarter 3 and quarter 4, the advisory committee has managed to evaluate all the requests that were submitted, and they've submitted their recommendations to both the Minister of DERCO and the Minister of Finance. Of key to note is the request that was submitted on the Sahrawi, which was funded subsequently, and also the request for humanitarian assistance for Cuba following the hurricanes, which was also evaluated by the committee, and their inputs and recommendations have been submitted to the ministers, which are currently going the consultation process. And in the next quarters, we might come in the new financial year and report on the status thereof. And we have also managed to monitor the projects of the ARF in compliance with the concurrence. Here we have monitored to ensure that out of the 15 projects that we had in our books for quarter 3 and 4, all the funds that were dispersed were within the budget, and also that the project deliverables were aligned to the foreign policy as approved, and we have managed to achieve that. For quarter 3, we had 15 projects, and for quarter 4, we had 17 projects, which is the 100% which was monitored. And looking into the last target looks into the closeout for the ARF projects. In this target, we have managed to compile a closeout report in quarter 3, but however, in quarter 4, we did not compile, and this is due to the fact that there were no projects that were eligible for closure. Hence, there was no closeout project that was due to be compiled during the quarter 4 of the financial year. Chair, on the next slide, I will just speak to the last indicator, which is linked to the observer missions for the SADC. Following the SADC election observer mission, the delegations and the experts that were sent have managed to compile reports, comprehensive reports, which were signed off by the Minister of DERCO. These reports are compiled based on the SADC principles for observing elections, and also of giving inputs on the status quo, on the status of how the elections observer was unfolded, and further making recommendations for future elections observer missions to be supported. Chair, that is the end of the performance, and now we will look into the ARF financial reporting for both the quarters, which I will also take between quarter 3 and quarter 4. Our appropriated funds are remained unchanged for 52.1 million throughout the financial year, but our investment income, which is mainly our interest and on our reserve bank account, for quarter 4 has increased to 71.6 million. And we have also, in terms of our expenditure, which is our local and foreign aid, honorable members might have seen that for quarter 4, we have zero spending, but we've managed to improve into quarter 4 at the end of the financial year, where we had projects to an amount of 97.6 million, which were expensed. And these projects are for the 37 million goes towards the Sahrawi humanitarian assistance, which I've just spoken to. And we have 50 million that goes to the support for the state of Palestine following the war, which was also implemented through one of the agencies that are currently on the ground in Gaza to support the medical rehabilitation of the infrastructure building, and that is for 50 million. And we have also supported the capacitating of the Supreme Audit Institution for 6.8 million. And we have 2.9 million that was directed toward policy and research. And honorable members, also quite for noting, which is significant on our financial report, is our receivables, which is a loan that was granted to Cuba. At the end of quarter 3, we have reported the closing balance of 40 million. But however, this closing balance has taken into account the repayment that was due in December, which Cuba managed to pay before the end of December. Hence, there's a reduction. And the next repayment was also due in June 2025, which we have also received subsequently, which will come and report to in the new financial year. And we have our total liabilities, which we've closed the financial year with for 445 million. These are our projects which we are currently dispersing. In certain cases, it's where we are ensuring compliance with the agreement and ensuring that we do oversight so that we can disperse the funds. And that is the balance of 445. And we are also reporting that outside of our accumulated surplus, we will be starting with discussions after the audit process is finalized in terms of Section 53 on slide 13, where we'll be starting the process to apply for the retention of surplus to retain 466 million. And the outcome of that process will then affect the future projects which the ARF will fund and increase the available funds. Honorable Chair and honorable members, and I submit then the quarterly report for the ARF. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentations. Thank you very much, DG and your team. DG, anything from your side before we give members?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Nothing to add from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, DG. Honorable members, we can now engage. I will give Honorable Douglas, followed by Honorable Powell, and then Honorable Smith. Any other member who is going to speak? It's Honorable Douglas, Honorable Powell, Honorable Smith, Honorable Mshongo. Any other member? Honorable Kumbaka. Any other speaker? Okay, in that order then, it will be Honorable Douglas, Honorable Powell, Honorable Smith, Honorable Mshongo, and Kumbaka. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Honorable Douglas. I just want to greet everybody, and I want to start by passing on MKP's condolences to the family of the Deputy President David Mabuza, as well as to the ANC as an organization. Our thoughts and our prayers are with you, and our sympathies are with you in this difficult time. And we also want to honor his service to our country as a representative of our country. Thank you for the opportunity to engage today on the Q3, Q4 performance, as well as the ARF, Mr. Chair. I think one of the key things is that this program and this budget and this budget report again speaks to the lack of commitment to expanding the budget of DIRCO, expanding the budget of ARF, and growing in the areas where it needs to grow. This is very much still speaking to business as usual, austerity budget. But if we look at the targets, Mr. Chair, it sounds impressive that it seems to be 100% across the board, but it seems that DIRCO is playing like a referee and a player in this regard. We cannot set small targets and then tell ourselves that we've achieved 100%. If you look at 24 of 24 targets met in Q4, including over 30 bilateral missions, state exhibitions, MOUs, and high-level visits across Algeria, Vietnam, Brazil, Palestine, and China, we commend this, Mr. Chair, because it's what we need to do, especially in the global south, and especially for places like Palestine and other places like China that can take our products. But we have questions on who benefits the most from these missions and most from these agreements and from these trade bilaterals. Is it the average South African? Is it black-owned SMMEs? Is it township economies, or is it white-owned monopoly JSE-listed companies? From the list of companies that I saw that was in this presentation, there's a number of them that seem to reflect historic colonial and apartheid era beneficiation, like Agri SA, Fruit SA, FPF, Westgrow. These are all companies and many other companies that are just white-owned companies that are are not supporting local procurement of local products in their exporting. The report boasts an estimated 4.1 billion rand worth of deals signed at the China International Import-Export Expo. But again, who are the beneficiaries? Is it only the politically connected, who is connected in the ANC, in the DA? Is it the white-owned monopoly capitals, the people who still own the land, the mines? I cannot see that there's a large amounts of black-owned SMMEs or township companies or youth companies or women-owned companies that are benefiting from this. Nevertheless, not even a mention of indigenous and Aboriginal Khoisan, San, Xhosa, Zulu people. There's no metrics for creating jobs and for the unemployed. How many of these trade deals included local township exporters, informal traders, or indigenous small producers? Can the department please quantify this for us and do a full cost benefit analysis and economic assessment based upon the impact that this budget and this Q3, Q4 can quantify in terms of its impact in terms of the local community. Mr. Chair, we see South Africa represented at wine expos in Canada, mining expos in Chile, food fairs in the UAE. But when do Philippi's farmers or Atlantis small manufacturers or Soweto's black-owned SMMEs participate? At what level do they benefit from these? Because it doesn't seem to trickle down at all. There's no agreements for the majority of the people in South Africa. These expensive events and colonial parties and dinners are using taxpayers' money to re-entrench white monopoly capital's ownership over export and import, Mr. Chair. There's a glaring disconnect between foreign policy activity and the lived reality of poverty, inequality, and exclusion in South Africa. The department has spent over 7.8 billion rand this financial year, but with no public visibility on its impact on the townships, on the rural development, land reform, advocacy at global platforms. So we need to beneficiate our own raw materials, and we need to see how that plays into these trade agreements. It's fine to have trade agreements and bilateral agreements, but how does it work in terms of putting it down on the ground for economic diplomacy? On the ARF, Mr. Chair, is ARF a strategic tool of Pan-African solidarity or a quiet diplomatic slush fund? In Q4, ARF achieved 100% of its targets, but most of these were administrative, Mr. Chair, not transformative or economic. Here's the real story. Over 925 million sits in cash and cash equivalents at this moment. Over 106 million in surplus in Q3 and 26 million in Q4. But we're told the fund depends on submissions to disburse. There's only one humanitarian request approved, and that's for the Zawari refugees, and only one peace building proposal for the Great Lakes region, and one development cooperation request. We said this before, Mr. Chair. We need a more proactive ARF, one that actually meets the needs of the people and actually supports like the Sudanese civil society or Congolese reconciliation or African indigenous women's leadership, and actually is proactive in, if they're not applying, that we need to go and approach them and say, this is how we are here to support, or then use the money for South African benefit in these areas on Africa. We are sitting at over 520 million in accumulated surplus, and we're asking who decides on how this money is spent. What is the selection criteria, and why are there no public consultations or parliamentary hearings on project prioritization? I'll be closing shortly, Mr. Chair. We want to, we must have future performance reports must include impact on job creation, youth exchange, rural beneficiation, and women-owned business participation. All ARF projects over 10 million rand must go through parliamentary screening, Mr. Chair, and we must create a people's panel for African solidarity funding with youth, indigenous groups, and civil society represented. We must have a dedicated unit within DIRCO for the representation of African Aboriginal and First Nation and African indigenous tribes from a cultural, traditional perspective on international platforms that gives traditional leaders opportunities to participate in the UN, ILO, and United, the UNDRIP forums, like the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples. So, Mr. Chair, I think that we can do a lot more with what we are doing. And I think we don't want to rubber stamp this, but we do feel that we want a full performance audit of trade, tourism, and investment MOU signed. how many are still active and how many benefited South Africans beyond just the people in Sandton and in Constantia, Mr. Chair. So we must either build sovereignty and justice and economic freedom through DIRCO, or we prop up an elite diplomatic class addicted to trips, expos, and symbolic victories. We stand for a pan-African foreign policy with teeth and with vision of purpose, Mr. Chair. So I think I'm going to leave it there and ask that we please find a way of coming back to us, Mr. Chair, let DIRCO come back to us and tell us exactly how to break this down, how to see where the benefit goes, and how to see also that it's not just politically connected white monopoly capital people that are now benefiting again under democracy, that we need to support our Black SMMEs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Douglas. Honorable Powell.
Thanks, Chair, and condolences on the passing of former Deputy President David Mabuza. Chairperson, my follow-up questions relate specifically to the African Renaissance Fund, because I'm once again deeply concerned by the presentation that, or the quality and the depth of detail contained in the presentation that has been sent to us. I've spent a few days going through in fairly meticulous detail the annual report of the ARF for the previous financial year. And I recall at the outset of my submissions, Chairperson, that roughly a month ago, this committee made a formal request to DIRCO that is minuted, that within 10 days of that meeting, a detailed list of all partner agencies and recipient organizations that have received any assistance or funding from the ARF be forwarded to the members of this portfolio committee, so that we're able to scrutinize exactly who is receiving what funding, for what purpose, what the project plans, outcomes, planned interventions, and results are. I note in the presentation that yet again, we were told during this time last year that one of the reasons that the ARF doesn't disperse funding to more than sort of one or two humanitarian projects is because they simply don't receive requests. And we had asked at that stage that DIRCO provide us with a list of all requests that had been received and assessed by the committee and the board, and that we wanted to know what DIRCO and the executive leadership of the ARF were doing to publicize the funds and the assistance that was available via the ARF. Now, once again, we see that DIRCO are setting targets that I would say are essentially equivocations. So percentage of targets met for humanitarian assistance requests, one request, 100% of the target met. We've got hundreds of millions of rands sitting in surplus. We see on the appropriation as at the end of the third quarter in December that the appropriation from Treasury of 52 million rand was untouched, and we're told that there was only one request. Again, we're seeing a repeat of what happened last year. I'm also concerned, Chairperson, that neither in the presentation nor in the audited annual report of the ARF do we see any level of detail in regards to the associated project plans where there have been disbursements. So, for example, outcome-specific interventions, and what the tangible results were in terms of the expenditure. For example, we see detail around assistance for the DRC peace process, the Sudan Civil War envoy, but what is being achieved? I noted in the annual report that we had charted a number of flights where we were delivering bags of maize and chickens and agricultural products to, for example, Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, but who was receiving this? What was the tangible outcome aligned with our strategic objectives as a nation? Now, my great concern, and I cast no aspersions, I merely note my concern, is that this fund is indeed a political slush fund for the ANC and their associates worldwide. Also deeply concerned that certainly on the books last year, we saw 100 million rand that was directed to Turkey and to Syria, with no detail around which organization received this funding. 50 million rand went to Palestine again last year, now again this year, no detail around who is receiving this funding, for what purpose. How can we as a committee satisfy ourselves that this money is not being directed into terror financing, for example, via the likes of some of the questionable international entities operating in those regions. So given that this committee already made a request that full details around partner and recipient organizations be provided to the committee within 10 days, I would like to ask the leadership of the ARF that today, this morning, we are given verbally a list of who the recipient organizations for each of the disbursements is. And then it is sent to us in writing by the end of today, noting that the 10-day deadline has passed. I would also like to understand in more detail exactly what the status of the request with regards to assistance to Cuba is, noting, of course, the High Court having overturned the decision to allocate funds to that communist regime a number of years ago. What is the current status of the request? And then furthermore, I would like to understand, I have no formal accounting training, so please indulge my ignorance in this regard, but on the appropriations on the financials sheet that's been given to us, we see that Treasury appropriated 52 million, but 52 million remained on the balance book unspent at the end of Q3. Can we just please get some detail on that? And then what is being done to essentially publicize what is available in this fund? And I would then support the Honourable Douglas's request that this committee be engaged on requests that are made to the fund and the adjudication of such requests on a quarterly basis. And then if we can please get an undertaking, lastly, that where there are targets set and money disbursed, for example, the DRC peace process or the Sudan envoy or humanitarian assistance to the state of Palestine, that this committee be furnished with full project plans, so the detailed outcomes, interventions, and financial trails. The DA is going to be focusing on this fund with razor precision going forward. And if we're not able to get that information via the committee, then we will, in the coming days, be launching higher applications into full financial transaction statements, because we've now been asking for months and months and months for this level of detail. It's our job to conduct oversight. We're not getting the level of financial detail that is required. We have grave concerns around where this money is going and what it is ultimately being used for. And we would like that department to use this opportunity to assuage our fears by providing us with that information in a transparent manner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Powell. Honourable Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I also just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues on the committee, Honourables Powell and Wesley, around the lack of detail in these presentations. We get these quarterly performance reports. We've had them now for a year since the seventh Parliament began, but they really are scant on detail, and we cannot actually enact oversight over this department without the detail. I think that I'm largely covered on the ARF by my colleague, the Honourable Powell, and I think those issues will certainly be taken up. But I just want to focus primarily on the first presentation, particularly around trade, which I think began from slides 14. It's very clear that the department has traveled quite a lot, and that there've been a lot of meetings held by particular missions in particular countries around certain industries and certain brands and companies, but we don't have any idea of the benefits to South Africa in terms of figures. So I have only noted two figures. The one was from the China International Import Expo, where there was an alleged 4.1 billion rand worth of agreements signed according to DTIC. And then one of the slides mentioned $3 million US worth of trade as of the beginning of 2024 with Kuwait. Outside of that, there is no mention of any trade agreement, any trade deal, any strategic industries, any strategic partnerships, anything that's been signed on paper, anything that has really cemented trade relationships between South Africa and other nations, which is really the crux of what we need to be dealing with here. And I just don't think that we are having any effect, at least based on what the presentation shows, and certainly on what the job figures in South Africa show, on the most pressing problem in our country, which is unemployment. And I mean, the needle on South Africa's unemployment figures has not moved, and it is imperative in this department, in conjunction with DTIC, to strategically leverage South Africa as an investment destination. So, Chair, I would just like to ask the department if we can have the detail that accompanies these presentations, and we can actually have intentions and outcomes from all of these international engagements, because we need to know, what are you hoping to achieve from these meetings when you meet with the Slovak Republic, for example, or Monrovia, or any number of these, quite frankly, seemingly arbitrary countries. I mean, yes, they are allies potentially of South Africa. We've got representation there, but they certainly, from a trade perspective, are not the important people that we need to be meeting with. So my request, Chair, to the department is can we please understand what the objectives are going to these meetings and what the outcomes are when they conclude, in terms of facts and figures? Can we understand what trade deals are discussed and signed? What is the benefit for ordinary South Africans from all of these meetings? And outside of just the talk shops, how are they beneficial to growing the economy and creating jobs? So that's my primary concern, Chair, specifically around trade and investment from the first presentation. Because outside of that, this really is just a tick box exercise. I don't think that the department should be coming to this committee and telling us how many objectives have been achieved over a particular quarter, saying that they've ticked every box and we should be happy with just that. I mean, we're not here to commend the department for doing the bare minimum. We need to see what exactly it is achieving in terms of its mandates, and certainly in terms of what the country needs. So that is just my particular request, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mshongo.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to you, greetings to colleagues, and Derko, and all our staff members here today. First and foremost, let's pass our condolences on the passing on of the former Deputy President of South Africa, Babu Titi Mabuza. Condolences to his family, his friends, neighbors, and most importantly to his organization, the African National Congress, to the people of Mpumalanga and the people of South Africa. Indeed, we have lost a great man who was very humble and always engaged with even the opposition with a smile on his face. So we pass the condolences on behalf of the economic freedom fighters. Now, Chair, when I was going through the presentation by Derko, Chair, let's first say that, Chair, it's not welcome that we go through these important presentations and we don't have either the minister or the deputy ministers. I note their apologies that they've sent and were presented by Lubabalo from the beginning of the committee. However, Chairperson, it's important that we have political heads to come and engage on these important reports. Ourselves were politicians, we have only staff members, even if it's senior management here with us, still, Chair, it was going to be important to have either the minister or one of the deputy ministers present here with us today. Like we say, our meeting is always on a virtual platform, so anyone can join from anywhere across the globe. I remember at some point, Chair, you were attending a committee, a meeting in Brazil, but you were able to still continue to chair the committee meeting even though you were in Brazil. So it's not welcomed, Chair, that we don't have either the minister or the deputy minister present here with us. Now, Chair, when I was going through the presentation, one thing comes every time, whether they are reporting on Africa or any America and Europe, Asia, or any of the groups, the 4 groups, Chair, what is persistent or what is prevalent is that every time there's this international engagement, there's always either signing of a memorandum of understanding or some trade agreements. In signing of all these trade agreements, Chair, we as a committee have been calling, we don't get a full detailed report on what the agreement that they've signed in everywhere else, whether it's the president or the deputy ministers or different ministers, ranging from a minister of agriculture, minister of public works, minister of tourism, deputy minister of international relations, whoever goes to these international trips, Chair, they come back having signed either a memorandum of understanding or a trade agreement between the 2 countries. Yet we don't get to be told what was the trade agreement about, who gets to benefit for it, and how do we ensure that ordinary people, ordinary citizens, ordinary entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs sitting in Umlazi, and entrepreneurs sitting in the villages, in Nongoma, in Vembe, how do they hear about these opportunities and how do they then get to participate? Now, Chair, what I saw is that in one visit by the deputy minister to China, they placed an emphasis that South Africa, for South African small medium enterprises to be exposed to the Chinese market. What is the plan or strategy of DERCO to ensure that working with small business development minister, how then do they ensure that this opportunity reaches small and medium enterprises of South Africa, and which offices can the ordinary people, ordinary small business people go to want to be plugged with this beautiful opportunity of having to explore the Chinese market? In all this presentation, it's like it's a tick box exercise. They are doing these activities just to report to us that these are the activities we've done. To show that there's no consistency, Chair, in one trade agreement that was signed, it says that it's a trade agreement worth 4.1 billion. But in the other trade agreements, there's no mentioning the value of the trade agreements that were signed and the number of jobs that this trade agreement is going to create for ordinary people of South Africa. So in all these trade agreements and memorandum of understanding that are signed, can we be told the value of the trade deal and the companies involved and how many jobs will be created? And if there's opportunities like we've seen with the opportunity from the Chinese, that they are placing a huge emphasis that they want small and medium enterprises of South Africa to get access to the Chinese market. As a member of parliament, Chair, I've got a constituent. How then do I go about to say to the people, go to this office, this is how they will help you, and so that you explore this opportunity? Which office do they go to? What role does DERCO play? However, Chair, there's also this issue of 141 South Africans that are in distress in different parts of the world. It's really sad, Chair, that we only offer consular support to people that find themselves in distress. I'm not talking about people who are arrested. Leave the people who are arrested. A person who's abducted, a person who was probably scammed, that they were promised some job. When they get there, there's actually no job. They are maybe made into slaves or something else. How does DERCO offer support? I'm not talking about consular support. Financial support to ensure the safe return of South Africans that are in distress all over the world, that they safely return home. Because I don't think there's no financial support that we offer. And it's really sad when you see families, Chair, many a times you will see families crying on social media, pleading that they need help to repatriate a body of their loved one from wherever the person has died, in whichever country, but they've got no money or finances to bring that person back home. I've seen that, Chair, and it's really disturbing me on my side. I've seen There was this case of a lady who just passed on, I think in America. Clayson was trying to assist that family. You know, DERCO does not offer financial support, they just offer consular support, and then they go and plead money from other people to intervene. Why don't we intervene as DERCO to ensure that we don't have families pleading and probably being scammed and being taken advantage of when they go to social media to plead for assistance for the safe return of their loved ones. Another something that really raised my eyebrow, Chair, is the visit from Zivoli Group in Bamako. That they've signed a non-disclosure agreement. This does not sit well with me, Chair, that we've got a group that goes there and signs a non-disclosure agreement. It reminds me, or has elements of the Takato consortium deal that was once signed by Public Enterprise, Chair. We shouldn't have a situation where there's non-disclosure agreements that are signed and we're not able to play an oversight role on those agreements because it's a non-disclosure agreement. It really does not sit well with me that there's such an agreement. And on top of that, Chair, from this report, you are able to deduce that every department that goes and signs any memorandum of understanding or a trade deal, whether it's arts and culture, whether it's agriculture, whether it's trade and industry, there's a role to play by DERCO, meaning that those people should be able to called to come to this committee to be able to account and take us through on those agreements that they've signed, and we check, does this benefit ordinary South Africans? Is this agreement that they've signed at going to benefit South Africa? You know, I see there's trade agreements that get to be reviewed. The fifth South Africa Belgium Joint Committee that took place in Brussels had reviewed the status of the bilateral relations on trade and other important issues. Why can't this committee, Chair, do the same? Why are we not bringing all these different departments and DERCO leading this process to bring these trade bilateral reports, and we go through them and we check if really they benefit the people of South Africa? And Chair, okay. Now, another thing that troubled me on the presentation, there's a company called Gamma Group that is building the rail line in Liberia, connecting Liberia and Guinea. Chair, who owns this company? How do we get ordinary business people to also participate in such initiatives? Lastly, Chair, I'm interested in, lastly on the first part of the report, I'm interested to know the delegation that went led by the Department of Agriculture to participate in the South African Indonesia Business Forum. I'm interested in getting their full names and knowing who they are, because we're just told of the companies that they represented, but the names of the people who went on that trip is not mentioned. When the president went to visit the US on the last hour, when the engagement was about to begin, we were given names of people, some of which we're not happy with because of who they are. Johan Rupert represents white monopoly capital, represents the poverty of South Africa, represents that this is the man who's at the center of our people being paid peanuts and being ill-treated in farms, in the different sectors of work they find themselves in. So I'm really interested, Chair, if we can get the list of those people who participated in this delegation of South African Indonesia Business Forum, who they are. If we can get that list, it will be very helpful to us. Their names, not just the company. Give us the name that this one is from Agrisita, is XY. From this a platform is ABC. So one names, let put names and gender attached so that we can see how many females, how many are youth, and also if you can put their age categories so we can see if young people are taking a center stage in these important events. Now, Chair, on the last part of the report, compensation of employees and payment for financial assets, Chair, exceeds the budget due to high exchange rate. This is what we mentioned when we rejected the budget, Chair. It means it will continue again in the financial year of 2025-2026 because the budget does not take into consideration the exchange rate and the fact that some of the monies we are going to have to pay, it's outside of South Africa. We are going to compensate our employees in the different embassies outside of South Africa and consular offices. So it does not take into account this important factor of the budget. That's why it will persist, and that is why we said on our rejection of the budget, we mentioned this, Chair, and to show that indeed we were correct, it's reported again now in this report. Lastly, the number of project site visits report. Chair, it's important that not only DERCO goes to verify the money that DERCO is spending and say that, no, we've bought 1, 2, 3 in this country, we're doing 1, 2, 3 in this country. We don't go to visit those side projects ourselves as a committee to verify that indeed there is such a project, it's benefiting people. There's refugees of Western Sahara, they are benefiting in this manner. We're participating in rebuilding or assisting with agricultural products, agricultural activities in Mozambique. Can't we as a committee go and verify these things ourselves to ensure that indeed they exist? DERCO can spend money and appropriate it to DERCO, and then themselves they go and verify that indeed such things exist without us as a committee going to play oversight to re-verify that indeed those things exist. Otherwise, Chair, we will not have done justice to this committee if we don't also get to be taken along, or else we might as well make it a joint thing. When DERCO goes to verify where their money spent, let's tag along with them as a committee to go and verify also if indeed those projects do exist and is it worth the money that South Africa is putting out there. I thank you, Chair.
Honorable Kumbata.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to yourself, the members of the Portfolio Committee, and also the members from DERCO present, and all other fellow South Africans tuned in. Chair, mine is very short. Firstly, it is to welcome the presentations and just put an emphasis, on especially on the bilateral meetings by the ministry to these various countries, and in terms of the resolutions and also agreements that are signed on. Mine is just to emphasize the need to establish, the monitoring mechanisms to ensure that these outcomes are implemented, And I think the department needs to develop and communicate a detailed implementation strategy, in terms of how they will, outlining how these goals or other agreements will be achieved. So I think in action, this strategy must include a defined action plan with timelines and resource requirements and, performance indicators and monitoring mechanisms to ensure that there's effective implementation. And I also think the quarterly reports must provide measurable progress updates and highlight any implementation challenges and also outline the corrective actions that are to be taken. I think that will make us go a long way in terms of even our oversight work, in terms of ensuring that implementation or meaningful implementation ensues, Chair. And then in terms of the ARF, I think we need more transparency in terms of, on the goals on the development goals, in terms of the relations we have with these various states that we are funding and who they are, so that we don't find ourselves wanting if we find ourselves in a position where some of them don't align with some of our foreign policy goals. So from my side, Chair, I think that is that. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Kumbaka. DG, I'm sure you have heard the issues that have been raised here today. There are issues that Honorable Mhlongo was saying. If we had the minister here and the deputy ministers, they were supposed to respond to. I will urge that because you have noted those issues, please make sure that you pass them over to the minister and the deputy ministers. There is a meeting that is coming, honorable members, where we are going to have about 5 to 6 hours with the minister himself on various issues that we have been raising. So I hope that those matters will be taken forward on that day. And then this matter of the 10 days which was given to the department to give a detailed account of the ARF, the projects, the beneficiaries, and so on. And now that 10 days has lapsed, I'm sure in your response you will then indicate, DG, what do we do going forward. Otherwise, over to you, DG, and your team.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Maybe I'll start with the last point you just raised around the 10 days. The report has been compiled. It's most likely been processed by the Minister's Office and should be with the Portfolio Committee, hopefully by today or tomorrow. I think it's just a question of finalizing it and also the travel, but that report has been done. As you said, Chair, there's some issues that we may want to defer to the political level, but there are some that perhaps I could just briefly go through. I do see from a lot of, starting with Honorable Douglas, a lot of questions around what is the actual benefits in more detail from the various engagements on international trade and development. We as DIRCO facilitate the linkages and the meetings, and that's what the nature of the report is. The implementation would be done by line function departments, whether it's an agreement on water and sanitation or an agreement on mining. And what we are doing together with the presidency is looking at a format for tracking implementation. This also helps us when we do follow-up visits and follow-up by national commissions, where we can then look at is a particular agreement working or not working. And so we are working on a process to look at more detailed monitoring of the implementation, which will allow us to give us, the kind of answers that are being requested in terms of who benefits. Is it mostly the big companies? Does the benefits also, impact the more marginalized and smaller companies? I think these are very fair questions, and we're hoping that this approach by ourselves and the presidency on these agreements, the implementation would assist also for us, and also the portfolio committee. A large number of questions was also asked on the proactive nature, particularly of the ARF. And I think, Chair, we all had a discussion on this last year, is that we really want it to be more proactive. The current format of the ARF means it's very reactive, humanitarian-centered, and request-based. We would like to be more proactive, to be more focused on what, in fact, from a soft power perspective, we should be funding. And that's why we're so keen on getting the SATPA process underway and finalized, because SATPA, as we did present to the committee, allows us to be more proactive. It allows for the establishment of a more normative grant making institution, as opposed to the ARF, which is essentially housed within DIRCO, but managed between DIRCO and National Treasury, and a more substantive grant making institution, which SATPA would allow us to be proactive, allow us to have program officers, for example, if we're going to be, if we think that, for example, the human rights of women is an important soft power issue in the region, we would then be able to have program officers that proactively goes and looks for the opportunities to fund in those kind of spaces. But that is the separate discussion that we want to have. So, I think that we do share the concerns raised by Honorable Douglas, and we're working on looking at how we get, this sector to be more proactive. I think there's some space of Honorable Powell asked similar issues around the RF, and I think I've answered the question for the list of recipients. But again, some specific issues, but Ms. Semple must also come in here just to remind me. So Syria and Turkey, those were agreements based on requests that emerged following the devastating earthquakes. But again, because of the time lag between request, project education, and approvals, by the time the approval came, the acute phase of the humanitarian situations in both those countries was over. And I did think that our committee, at the level of officials between DIRCO and National Treasury, asked for those two projects to be withdrawn, given the fact that the acute phase was gone. The same then with the humanitarian support to Palestine. It's not two occasions. I think it's just there was a significant time lag between once the request was made and the approval process and the eventual approval. So it was supposed to be funding earmarked for both UNRWA and the World Food Program, but Ms. Semple would come in and give us a sense of what the latest is. But I just want to assure Ms. Powell and also the fact that this is a public, the portfolio is open to the public, that National Treasury and DIRCO, when we do assess this, we at the request are fully cognizant of our responsibilities, both fiscally and also to ensure that we don't breach any domestic or international laws in terms of who we fund and how we fund them. So I do think that that's something that I just wanted to point out there. But on those three issues specifically, if Ms. Semple can just give us the latest details on that. And also the Cuba loan issue, if she can just explain the difference between the various means in which the ARF has supported Cuba. So she spoke about the loan repayment, but also maybe just a quick reflection on the fact that no new loans to that level from a humanitarian perspective was done, given the court case that was referenced. I think Honorable Smith asked the similar questions, which I think I may have answered already. And the same with Honorable Mshlongo. I think it's about the value and the impact of our trade agreements that we facilitate, we don't implement, and how that impacts on the SMME sector, how does that impact on poverty and inequality. And we also see that we may want to provide the details of the Indonesia South Africa Business Forum. We can certainly find details on that and share that. But Chair, I think that those are the issues that I thought I should cover, because it was cross-cutting issues that came through all the comments and questions. But can I just check with my colleagues, both in the COO and the COO's office, if they want to add anything, and also Ms. Semple from the ARF, please.
Thank you, DG, and honorable members. Yes, on the Syria and Turkey, DG is correct. The two projects were rescinded and they were closed, so there will not be any spending that we will be reporting for the two countries. And also to just explain to the members, so you have a process where a project is approved and you have a financial reporting process. ARF reports are on an accrual basis. You might have a project that is approved in 23-24 financial year, but however, in terms of the spending and the disbursements, they overlapped into the next financial year, which is what Didi was explaining, that it is not new projects or maybe a duplicate of project that goes towards Palestine, but in the previous financial year, it was the approval of the project and the disbursements of the funds then overlapped into the next financial year, but it is still the same project that was relating to humanitarian assistance. And on the Cuba issue, there's a project for Cuba economic package which looked into the loan part, where there was 140 million that was granted towards the loan, and that had repayment. That's where we have a closing balance of 40 million, and it is anticipated that Cuba will repay the outstanding balance by the end of 2026. Then you have the issue of the humanitarian aid assistance project. Previously, there was a request that was submitted, and that's where there was a court case. But however, the findings of the court case were on procedural matters of the advisory committee, not on the nature of the package to Cuba, where there was an issue of the quorum on how the committee that recommended, and that's how the case was closed and the department then lost the case. But however, in this new request, it comes then following the earthquake that took place in Cuba in September. There was then a request for South Africa to intervene. A request was submitted to the Committee for 52 million humanitarian aid. It was evaluated by the advisory committee and supported by the Minister of DERCO. This request is now with the Minister of Finance. It is not yet funded because earmarked the funds that must fund this request needs to come out of the surplus. We can only start with the process to apply to retain the surplus from the National Treasury, which is another question that was asked by Honorable Powell to say, what is the process for applying? The process needs to be the department, ARF as an entity of DERCO submits this request to National Treasury with the audit report and the audited figures. The National Treasury, through their review processes, gives feedback, and if approval is granted, they write officially to DERCO to say approval is granted. Only then can projects be funded and we can start the spending. So today, we cannot confirm that funding until that process is finalized. Then, Honorable Chair, on the issue of disbursements and the issue of the significant balance on the bank, as asked by Honorable Douglas, Chair, ARF is big on clean audit administration. Therefore, funds are released when there's compliance with project deliverables, and funds are released also when there's compliance with the ARF Act. Hence, we have established project steering committees per project which oversee this project. Therefore, the compliance and the releasing of the funds needs to be aligned with the timelines that are informed. Hence, you see the balances being high, and also there's an issue saying because you have a balance, you keep on also accruing interest on your reserve bank. So every quarter when we come and report an increase. So the issue is not to just disperse, but it's to ensure that we disperse aligned to the compliance requirement, which will maintain the clean audit status for the ARF. Then there was an issue on the selection criteria. The selection criteria is aligned to the ARF Act. There's objectives of the ARF Act that needs are considered by the committee, but also there's an issue of budget availability that is also needs considered by the committee. And under our program 7, we report on an indicator that we're saying the number of project proposals that are evaluated by the committee. That's where we list the details of the project. And maybe going forward, for the purpose of the committee, we can maybe add a slide that also gives more details on this project proposals, depending on the number of project proposals that are evaluated. If it's a significant amount, then we might want to have maybe a separate report, and that will also address the issue of transparency and enhancing and having a comprehensive report. And then, Chair, there was also an issue from Honorable Powell on the disbursements of project. Disbursements of project is reported in the financial statements, which is in your cash flow, where we are recording to say this is how much we've dispersed and per project. So that's where in the annual report that was mentioned, the figures are reported. And on the issue of the project plan and the project proposals for new projects, project proposals are submitted to the ARF Secretariat, then reviewed by the ARF Advisory Committee, where minutes are also kept. And I think maybe we can, through a consultative process internally, and maybe find a way on how to have this information, I think, accessible to the committee, but obviously also taking into account the applicable legislations for using the information. But the issue of transparency, the information is accessible also for our auditors on how the project, because that's what confirms the funding. So we will then maybe provide feedback on the better mechanism, but the project plan and the project proposals are available. You have a project proposal before a project is approved, and after the project is approved, then you develop a project plan, which is where the project steering committee now intervenes. And we, through that consultative process internally, we can then report to the committee how we can facilitate the submission of those documents for new projects. There's an issue that was also raised by Honorable Mhlongo on the project site visit. Chair, the site visits are not only conducted by the ARF Secretariat. We have, on request where the AGSA Internal Audit wants to do this oversight, they also go on oversight. We also have our missions who also assist with the oversight, but we can also be advised on how the committee will want to proceed. But however, the site visits are open, and also SARF, we do conduct them. And if maybe there's a request for the site visit to certain projects, SARF, we can facilitate that. And I think we've touched on the issue of transparency, and Chair, I think we covered all the requests, but the issue of the last one of the request evaluated, that is reported under the program 7, and we can submit more details when we report those projects on what the project means and what the project deliverables and objectives are. Thank you, Chair.
DG?
No, thank you, Chair. I think that covers it from our side.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mhlongo, your hand is up.
Sorry, Chair, is a legacy hand.
Oh, legacy. Honorable members, is there any other member who wants to make a follow-up, or maybe a new question has arisen?
Chairperson, it's Honourable Powell.
Yes, Honorable Powell, proceed.
Thank you. Chair, I just want to confirm what the department is going to provide us. So, as the Director General has stated, the report with regards to the specific organisations that have received ARF funding is with the Minister's Office. And according to the DG, it should be with the committee today or tomorrow. I understand that's beyond the DG's control. The Minister must sign off. I know that the Minister has a parliamentary liaison officer who will be in this meeting if that PLO could kindly ensure that happens. But then, more specifically, there is an additional request that I would just like to be very clear on, and that is that it's not for future presentations that we'd like the project plans and the full set of requests that have been made to the ARF steering committee or secretariat rather to be included, but we'd like this information for the report, for the current reporting period. So what requests have been made of the ARF, what was the outcome of the adjudication, and then the associated project plans and project, I don't know what you would call it, but the project implementation update reports as well for each of the projects listed. So Sudan, DRC, Palestine, then retrospectively for Syria and Turkey. And then on that score, just DG, please indulge me, I wasn't clear as to whether or not you were saying that because the deliberations took place at a point far beyond the severity of the natural disaster itself, that the money was not dispersed? Or are you saying that the money was indeed dispersed, but it wasn't necessarily used for the purposes of the natural disaster? I just want clarity, because when I read through the annual report, it was very clear that there was 100 million rand dispersed to Syria and Turkey, and then last year as well, 50 million to Palestine. So if I could just get clarity. So just to summarize what I'm saying, the recipient organization list will be provided to the committee within the next 24 to 48 hours. There is an additional request from this committee that the project plans for all detailed projects be provided, as well as the list of all requests that have been made to the AIF for assistance. And then if in this meeting, DZ can just clarify his comments with regards to exactly what happened with the disbursements to Syria and Turkey. Thank you, Chairperson.
Over to you, DG. But I think it will not be too far if we are to say, even if you say you will be submitting the report on the projects, so by tomorrow, if it says not beyond Friday, so it shouldn't be beyond Friday. But over to you, DG. It's can respond.
Thank you, Chair. So just very specifically, there were no disbursements made to Syria and Turkey for the humanitarian requests in question. Similarly, there was a delay in the disbursement to Palestine. With Turkey and Syria, we felt that it was no longer necessary and the projects were rescinded. The Palestinian project was not rescinded, and so that is still on the books. But for Syria and Turkey, no, those projects were rescinded, and no disbursements were made. Simple, just to make sure that I am not saying anything in error, you confirm that quickly, please?
Trinja ASDG, thank you. You have captured that correct, and no disbursements were done for Syria and Turkey. The project has been rescinded, which is technically closed and off the ARF books. Thanks, DG.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So, DG, is Friday all right? Or you're still saying you'll give us the report by tomorrow? No. On ARF projects?
I think if we can keep it as the sooner the better, but hopefully, the deadline of Friday, I think, is fair, Chair. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Honorable Powell, I'm sure that is fair. Friday is the outermost deadline.
I agree, Chair. Just to give the department some space, though, I have made an additional request today, which is for the project plans and the assessment valuation. So I presume that the department may need a little bit more time, because that's a second report. So the recipient organization report, we accept a deadline of Friday. And then if the department can tell us how long they would need for that second report, they probably won't be able to get it to us by this coming Friday.
Yeah, no, they won't be able to do that. Is end of August fair, DG, for the other detailed report?
And thank you, Chair. The end of August will be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, the department, for coming to the portfolio committee to account. Please make sure that you give the report to your political principals on matters that we will expect the minister and the deputy minister to respond to when we meet. Otherwise, we are now releasing you from the meeting now. And thanks for having attended the meeting. Let's proceed to the minutes, honorable members. Lubabalo?
Good afternoon or good morning, Chair and honorable members. Chair, I'd like, with your permission, Chair, to show the members the set of minutes that we have for adoption. We'll start with the minutes of the 2nd of April.
Okay, honorable members, the minutes were sent to all of us. Is there anything that members think needs to be corrected in the first set of the minute? None. Can we have a move for adoption of the minutes?
I move, Chair. Honorable Moela.
I move as well, Mr. Chair. Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas and Muela, for that. The minutes are now adopted as a true reflection of what happened in the last meeting. Second set of minutes, date.
Oh, Chair, we have the set of the 7th of May, Chair.
The 7th of May minutes were sent to members. Anything that members think needs to be corrected? None. Do we have a mover for adoption and seconder?
I move for adoption, Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas. Any seconder?
A second, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Muela. The minutes are now adopted as a true reflection of what was discussed.
We have the 14th of May, Chair.
That's the third set. Any correction, members? Do we have a move and seconder?
I'll move again, Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas. Seconder? Do we have a seconder, honorable members? Lubabalo, am I still audible?
On Disway said she is not able to unmute, so she is seconding, Mr. Chair. Kumbaka, Honorable Kumbaka.
Honorable Kumbaka? I didn't hear what Honorable Douglas is saying about you.
She has network.
Do we have a seconder?
Yeah.
Thanks again, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Muela. Fourth set, Lubabalo.
The fourth set is 21 May, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, any correction to be made on the minutes? None. Do we have a mover and seconder?
I move, Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas. Seconder?
I second, Honorable Moela.
Thanks, Honorable Muela. The fifth set, Lubabalo.
We have the 28th of May, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anything to be corrected, members? None. Do we have a mover for adoption and seconder?
I move,
for
Chair.
adoption.
I second,
Thank you very
Chair.
much. Thank you very much, Honorable Songo. The next set, Luba.
Chair, we have the 4th of June, Chair.
Lubabalo, the next set.
We have the 4th of June, Chair.
Anything to be corrected on the 4th of June, honorable members? Do we have a move and seconder?
I move, Honorable Douglas.
I second,
Seconder?
Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Msongo and Honorable Douglas. Next set, Lubabalo.
We have the 11th of June, Chair.
11th of June. Do we have any corrections to make, members? Do we have a mover for adoption?
I move, Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas. Do we have a seconder, please?
I second, Chair.
Honorable Songo, thank you very much. Lubabalo?
We have the 18th of June, Chair.
The 18th of June. Is there anything to correct in the minutes of the 18th of June, members? Do we have a mover for adoption?
I move,
to
Chair.
adopt.
Thanks, Honorable Mchongo, for moving. Seconder is Honorable
Second.
Douglas. Thank you very much, Honorable Douglas and Honorable Mchongo. Next set, Luba.
We have the 25th of June, Chair.
25th June. Anything to correct, members? Do we have a mover for adoption?
I move Honorable
Sure,
Douglas.
Chair, just hold on.
Yes, Honorable
Luba,
Mhlongo.
I just want to confirm with Luba, did you make the correction where you had noted that only the MK rejected to the move for the adoption? Because I had asked you correct that because it was the EFF and MK.
Yes, we did say so.
Yes, Honorable Mhlongo. I did,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Then I move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo and Atlas, for that. The minutes are now adopted, Honorable members. Next set.
Chair, we had 2 meetings, Chair, on the 25th of June. This one is on the SADC protocol, Chair.
On the SADC protocol, yes, I remember the meeting. What is the date?
It's the 25th of June.
25th of June. Members, do we have a mover?
I move Honorable Douglas.
Thanks, Honorable Atlas. Seconder?
It's again, Chair. Honorable Moela.
Thanks, Honorable Moela. The minutes are adopted as a true reflection
That was the last set.
of what ensued in that meeting. Is that the last set, Luba? Very much, Luba Malo.
Yes, the person, that was the last set, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable members, I take this opportunity to, on the quarterly efficiency of the meeting, South African Parliament, we also want to thank you and we value your ears and eyes as you follow the proceedings of the Portfolio Committee on International Relations. As I said, honorable members, all the condolences that have come from this meeting here today to the family, the comrades, the friends, the African National Congress for the passing on of the statement and will somehow be sent to the family and the African National Congress. Thank you very much for participating in the meeting. The meeting is now officially adjourned.
Can I
Enjoy
ask,
your afternoon.
Chairperson?
Yes.
Can I just ask you, do you have a date for the meeting with the minister yet?
We are waiting for...
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is now officially closed.
Chairperson, we didn't hear your response.
Yes, I'm saying we are waiting for the response of the minister. We gave him 3 dates.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The meeting is now closed, honorable members. Thank you very much.